Welcome to Being at Home with George during COVID. I'm excited, as usual, to be here today, and it's very interesting. We usually start off with this idea of creating the possibility, and we're going to do it now, creating the possibility of embracing whatever is here, the pain, the frustration, the fatigue, the sadness, whatever it is, and even the joy and happiness, if we're experiencing that, and at the same time generating a hope. And it's interesting because today I had quite a schedule when I think about, from back to back to back to back to back. And I had scheduled some downtime before coming on and doing this presentation. And there was something that I needed to get information about. So I got a phone call during that 45-minute break. And I ended up talking during the whole time. And that was the time where I needed a break because I've been going on and on and on. And then it's interesting because once that happened, and I said, okay, this is what it is. I have to embrace it. Yeah, I'm not as energized as I normally am. And so when I came and I sat in front of the computer and I started thinking about what we were going to talk about, and I realized that what happens is this is not uncommon. That I need to connect to higher power. I need to have access to power. And the way I do that is by embracing things and then generating a hope. And it's interesting because you might say, oh, this could be like a mini crisis. And a lot of us who have been in COVID for so long have been feeling like, okay, enough already, maybe feeling a little lethargic or low energy or maybe frustrated or maybe even depressed or sad because maybe we lost a loved one or we lost a way of being or a way of working or interacting with our friends. So there's some loss being experienced there. And it reminds me of this idea that I adopted a long time ago where when there's a crisis, and you could say this is kind of a mini crisis, or I don't have the energy that I would like to have. But in the crisis, it has two meanings. One meaning is danger, which we get that one. The meaning we don't often get is the opportunity. And so I change how I look at things, then everything changes. So I would call this right effort. And when I start to think about desire, what do I want? Okay, I want to be present here. I want to bring a certain quality of energy into this endeavor of having this conversation with, we're having this conversation, even though I'm talking, but it's our conversation. And how can I serve? And so when I can forget myself and forget about being fatigued and just focus on doing the next thing and just making the effort to be present, making the effort to stimulate and ask myself, okay, what's the opportunity here? And it's going to be great. And so I'm looking for the opportunities. I'm seeing this as a challenge. And here it is, another challenge I have where I don't have the energy, but I can rouse the energy. I can bring interest. I can bring this idea of being a service. I can bring this idea of the idea that effort creates energy is when I can have a little effort and I can bring enthusiasm or interest into it. Now I have access to more energy. And then when I start looking and seeing opportunities, and then I'm actually doing what we do when we run and when we play sports is you get tired, but then when you push through compassionately, you get a second win, or you have access to more energy. And William James, the father of psychology, said that there could be as many as 13 second wins. And I had that experience, and I continue to have that experience going back several years ago when I used to go to Chicago to work with the violence interrupters. So my process was I would leave Boston on like a 5 o'clock flight in the morning. So sometimes I didn't sleep at all that night, and then I had to get up and get picked up around 4:30, get to the airport, then fly to Chicago. Then once I got to Chicago, I'd take a taxi. I'd land around 8:30, then take a taxi to drop off my bags at the hotel, then go to the public health school in Chicago, and then I'd have a workshop or seminar from 10 to 6 o'clock. And then after that I would have to go out with the fun of people and eat, and I may not get back to my hotel room till 9 o'clock, and then I have to turn around the next morning and teach from 8 to 4, and then right at 4:15, run downstairs, take a taxi, and go over to O'Hare, and then get on a flight at a 6:30 flight, and then get back home around midnight that night. And so there's been many times when I didn't sleep at all, and I'm really kind of talk about dragging. I'm dragging, and I'm really low energy. But soon as I walk into that classroom, okay, what do I want? I want to serve. I want to. I know effort creates energy, and so just by getting stimulated in my role as being a teacher, my role as being a facilitator, I'd have access to energy, and I would move through. I would find that second, third, fourth one, whatever it was, and then I would just be so engaged I'd forget about being tired. And of course, part of it is while I was en route and I didn't sleep at all that night, because you know how it is for some of us when we travel, we got to make sure everything else is in its place and you got other things going on. I wasn't having these thoughts like, oh, I didn't get any sleep, I'm going to be tired. It was more like, oh, okay, the next thing, stay in the moment, just keep moving, keep it moving. Effort creates energy, so just do the next thing, and just be fully engaged. And then you get into a rhythm. I would get into a rhythm. So by the time I got into the classroom, I was fired up and ready to go. And then the subject matter of really doing something I love doing, helping people, being of service, and talking about how to do this thing called life, and even talking about how we deal with our energy when it's too high, when we have an excitation, how to bring it down, and how when we're sluggish, how do we generate the interest, generate the effort, make the effort just to do the next thing, just to take one step at a time. And then we find that we move through and we have access to higher power. But it's also a subtle thing about my self talk or my inner dialogue where I'm conscious of not thinking energy zapping thoughts. Like I'm going to be tired, or, I really don't want to be here, or they don't want to listen to me. And so I start to understand that the thoughts that I hold in mind, there's some thoughts that generate energy and some thoughts that don't. So we talk about wholesome thoughts, or thoughts that are helpful. They're in alignment with the opposite of greed, which would be generosity, renunciation, letting go, um, being compassionate, goodwill. And then there's other thoughts that are like angry thoughts, or what we call aversion, and having thoughts of the opposite, being engaged, embracing what's happening, and then making a choice in the space between stimulus and response to make a choice that empowers me. So something happens, once again, going back to crisis. When I look at it, I can interpret it as a crisis or I can interpret it as an opportunity. And just how I interpret things will determine whether I have access to energy and power and resources. So the proverbial glass is either half empty or half full. Both are right. So in this case, when I see it as half full, I'm coming from abundance, I'm coming from love, I'm coming from, yes, I can, it's going to be great, versus coming from the opposite of this half empty, and I'm in survival mode where I'm focused on fight, flight, and freeze, or freeze. And I'm in the animal realm. I'm on my heels. I can't really, and I'm in tunnel vision. And then that stimulates all of these energy zapping thoughts. So I can relate to things in an energetic, dynamic way, and saying, okay, there's an opportunity here. This is going to be great. How can I serve? How can I be helpful? And so we can do that from moment to moment. So even though I've had quite a day, when I'm here and I can think about serving, when I can think about how much fun this is, and we are talking about something that's real for us that we're dealing with now, how do we find the energy when we feel low energy? Can we just think about thoughts? Can we look at it as an opportunity to move beyond where we are and to embrace, yes, there's more energy there when I can just keep moving, when I can do what I know to do now, and then I'll be shown the next step. But it's taking the first step. It's generating the energy. Effort creates energy. So when we can have a continuous application of steady, balanced energy, then we start to get into the flow, we start to get into a rhythm, and then things start becoming effortless. And so that's my hope for us, my wish for us, that once we make the effort, we create the energy, but we also know volitional effort is the effort of attention. So we get to direct our attention. We get to do a Dr. Dre. I'll call it a Dr. Dre. I have my mind on money, money on my mind. That's meditation. That's volitional effort. I get to decide what I focus on, although I'm programmed and have the habit of focusing on any old thinking, any old thoughts. I get to choose thoughts that empower me, thoughts that give me energy. And I can think about, okay, what do I want? This is an opportunity. How can I be helpful? Those thoughts are better than these thoughts like, I'm tired, I don't want to be here. I'm going to be tired because I didn't sleep last night, that sort of thing. So that we start to understand what is our mind on? Because when I have my mind on fatigue, I have fatigue on my mind, and then I'm going to have less energy. If I have my mind on serving or on interest or on curiosity, I have curiosity on my mind, and that will generate energy. And then when I move forward and I start to realize that, okay, there is a second one, a third, or fourth, maybe there's who knows how many, but when I reach a limit, I can make a choice to say, okay, I just need to push through it just a little bit or ease through it. So I embrace it. Yes, I'm fatigued and I got a job to do. And why don't I just do what I need to do? And then the next step will be shown, and then I'll do the next thing. So I like to call it make the next play. And the next play is the smart play, and the smart play is the right play.